Larry Hartzell, Sifu Larry Hartzell. Trained with him for a little bit, broke two bones in my right foot, demoing a toe hold because he was like a bull in the china shop. And his attitude was like, "Oh man, I hate that when that happens." Yeah, Sifu Larry, I hate it too. Now I can't walk.
Competition.
Welcome back to FURYCAST. I am here with the Louisiana legend, Coach Danny Terrell. How you doing, Coach Danny?
I'm doing very well, Derrick. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this. Thank you.
Well, I'm very happy to have you. You're a fellow CSW affiliate, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Awesome. We'll get into all that and how you hooked up with Coach Erik Paulson and all the crazy people over at CSW a little bit. But go ahead and introduce yourself. Take about a minute to introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, thank you. I go by Coach Danny. Sort of rebranded myself over the last several years, especially after the pandemic, because of I've sold my business and or the school, and I continue to teach. My wife and I have become nomads, so we're traveling, living out of a camper, and really enjoying being able to travel and meet people that we normally would not have ever had the opportunity to meet, much less train with others in other schools that we never would have. I teach Wing Chun. I'm under Francis Fong in Wing Chun. Have been with him since 1992. I'm also an Arjan under Arjan Chai Suit in the World Thai Boxing Association. I'm a coach under Erik Paulson. I'm also a black belt Jiu-Jitsu under Erik as well. And other than that, I'm just a grandfather and a father and a husband.
Awesome. So do you still have an academy that's your home base in New Iberia, or?
Well, I hang out with progressive martial arts, which is what my school was. Sold it to one of my students, and he's doing very well. So I've spent the last 3 years now mentoring him, so that make sure that he's successful. So I still sort of play out of that, but I coach out of a couple other schools as well in the area, and then whenever I'm in the area, and then we often traveling. So, yeah.
Well, awesome. Real quick before we get started with your history, could you give me a quick list of all your certifications, all your belt rankings, if you can remember them, not because of your age, but because of the amount of search you have.
I have far more training in some stuff than I have actual certifications, because I was never a certification hunter. I am a black belt in Shotokan karate. Got that many years ago. I don't do anything with that anymore. I am a senior instructor under Francis Fong in Wing Chun. I'm a Arjan in the World Thai Boxing Association. I am a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a 10th level coach under Erik Paulson in CSW at STX. I'm a MMA coach as well under Erik Paulson, certified as an MMA coach. So I think that's the only thing that I haven't any. Oh, I'm a Magano Guru, which means elder instructor in Pakiti Tertia Kali with Pakiti Tertia International under William McGrath.
Wow.
And then I've had training in lots of other stuff, but I never really seeked any certifications or anything.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm also a native of South Louisiana. I grew up in Lake Charles.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And I started in Shotokan in Lake Charles under Rod Prejean. Did you paths ever cross with?
I've heard the name, but I can't say I've ever met him.
Okay. So take us back to the beginning. A young Coach Danny.
To a young, if I go all the way back to the beginning, I started boxing when I was 11 years old. I tried to get into boxing for a number of years. My mom refused. She didn't want me to have anything to do with that. My dad didn't like it either, but he eventually said, yeah, okay. So I started boxing when I was 11. Uh, wasn't a very good boxer because as an 11-year-old, I was not a really coachable person. I was extremely high confidence. Thought I knew better than everybody else, but did what I wanted to do. But I quickly realized that I was not a very good fighter. I got beat up quite a bit, so um, I eventually started listening to the coaches and finding out, hey, I could actually grow and learn stuff. But I learned it through the School of Hard Knocks because I was really not a very coachable person. Um, I boxed for 6 years. Um, Boxing was really, really big in Louisiana at the time, or South Louisiana. Um,
What year was this, or decade or
so
era?
I started in 1966. Just prior to that, boxing was actually in the schools, in high school. We had a New Iberia was considered a powerhouse as far as for boxing in the state of Louisiana, and it was done as part of the sports in high school. And they took it out. So we ended up with 5 or 6 different boxing clubs in New Iberia, which is really a small town. Even today, there's only about 30,000 people in New Iberia. So at the time, it was probably closer to about 20,000, and we had 5 boxing or 6 boxing clubs. Um, so there was a lot of boxing. It was really big. So anyway, I did that uh, in 1968, if I remember correctly. University of Southwest Louisiana, at the time, USL, started a wrestling program. And there was no wrestling in Louisiana back then. Um, there was a coach that came out of somewhere in the Midwest, and he started a wrestling program at the college. And for the summer, he began a summer program to develop feeders to bring people coming in with a little bit of experience going into college, because again, there was no wrestling in this area. So my dad would bring us to the summer program to do the wrestling. So I did that for 2 years, and the coach moved on, and of course the wrestling program fell apart. And eventually, I guess it was maybe in the 90s is when wrestling started to grow in South Louisiana. And then uh, Karen Crow and Turlings out of Lafayette and some places out of New Orleans started having wrestling programs. But prior to that, there was nothing here. The only other thing that they had was either Taekwondo or karate. And I just happened to have a buddy of mine that was his older brother was the instructor, had been Army Ranger, came out, went to work for the state police, and he started teaching Shotokan. So I started training with them, Ernie Farnett, and Ernie's take on it was, and it was his terms. He said, "We can air dance, meaning we can do katas, or we can learn how to fight." And coming out of boxing and everything, then I was more prepared to be able to fight than I was wanting to do air dancing, as he called it. If I remember correctly, Shotokan's got 26 different katas, and he showed us, 5 or 6 of them, and we only did 2 or 3. But he was really big on little small drills to develop good skill, and then we sparred a lot, just banged a lot. Um, and then we would do stuff, and he would say, "Okay, now go find that in your kata." So I showed you these katas. Go find those movements in the kata versus here's the kata, do all this kata stuff. And then what I started seeing was other people doing katas and then fighting, and the fighting didn't look anything like the kata to me at the time.
Yeah.
Of course, not having any real understanding of what the kata was supposed to teach, because we didn't get into that. Uh, his thing was more along the lines of you go find it for yourself and then figure it out. So anyway, I trained with Ernie for 4 years, 5 years. Ended up getting a black belt with him, and then graduated from high school and went into the military. Uh, I went in as a pararescue. Uh, did most of my training. I ended up getting washed out of pararescue. Pararescue is sort of the special forces for the Air Force, and I got washed out because of my eyesight. Had to have 20/20 vision, but I had about 6 months left, not even 6 months, maybe 4.5 months of medical training that we were getting ready to do. I'd done all the other stuff. And they said, man, Terrell, you got eyesight problems. Ended up going to the doctor and ended up having to wear glasses. And so they washed me out because of eyesight. Um, got quickly cross-trained into aircraft mechanics. I did a 6 month program, excuse me, a 3 month program in 6 weeks. And then they sent me to Little Rock Air Force Base, worked for about 3 months in hydraulics. And then they started having me do tactical missions uh, with some of the pararescue other guys. So I wasn't pararescue, but I was doing some pararescue stuff because of the training that they'd already put me through. So um, did a few stints, did some stuff. Was in the pullout for Vietnam. Was in the Philippines at the time. Uh, After the pullout in Vietnam, Cambodia captured the merchant ship, the Mayaguez. We went in with 40 Marines and recaptured the ship, got our crew members back, but unfortunately lost about 18 Marines in that. We had some bad intel going in. Uh, so that was sort of my kind of history with combat and fighting. When I got out, I really didn't want to have anything to do with fighting. It's pretty terrible what one human being can do to another human being when you see the ugliness side of it.
Absolutely.
So I went back to school, got into college, did college for about 9 months, and then got out of that, went into trade school, started a family, started my own business, and then got one of my kids, my oldest son, when he was 5 at the time, got him into martial arts, and he was training with a gentleman, Steve Young, who I had trained with Shotokan with, and that sort of sparked the interest for me to get back into training and started training again, and met Guru Dan in Osanto. We went to a seminar in Dallas, if I remember right, Dallas area, and then went to a seminar in the Little Rock area of Arkansas. Met Francis Fong, and just started training with those guys, and then through them met Arjun Chai and continued to train, traveling and training, because there was no real martial arts other than, again, Taekwondo and Shotokan in our area. So in order to get that information, we had to travel. So we spent I would hate to think of the amount of money that I've spent over the years paying for travel, uh, hotel accommodations, and then of course the training itself, and just have continued with that. Eventually started my own school, and we had built it up. At one point we had about 250 students, uh,
Nice.
teaching Wing Chun, Kali, Muay Thai, and some type of wrestling grappling program. So, and today I'm a nomad. So here I sit.
Now, your days in the military spent in the Philippines, did you take advantage of any kind of training at that time in the Philippines, or?
Well, no, not really. I had I saw, and I had done another podcast with somebody about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now, and they had asked the same things. Was that my introduction to Kali? And I said no. Filipino martial arts was not anything that was on my radar at the time. Uh, I was there more with the pullout of Vietnam and what was going on, so we were spending a lot of time going back and forth into Saigon, but had some R&R time, and I was with another group of guys. We'd gone to the beach, and there were some guys that were out there, and at the time I was like, man, those guys are nuts, because they were swinging sticks at each other, and they were doing some training, and then they were actually doing a little bit of sparring, and I was like, no, that's crazy. So that was sort of my introduction. I saw it, but it didn't really pique my interest or anything until I just saw what was going on, and was not involved with actually learning it at the time. Uh, it wasn't until I started training with Guru Dan that I began to get that. And then I met a gentleman, Omar Hakim, who was in New Orleans at the time, and he was doing Bikini Tertia. Uh, and I didn't know anything about Bikini Tertia. Really didn't know a whole bunch about Filipino martial arts other than the fact that we were swinging sticks. Uh, got invited to go to one of his Saturday afternoon 4-hour sessions that he was doing at the time. Um, so drove over to New Orleans and trained with Omar, and uh, really enjoyed that. And so I spent probably a year going at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, to New Orleans and training with Omar. Um, that was my introduction to PTK. At the time, he was under Leo Gahe. And then I met Bill McGrath, who wasn't 200 at the time, was Matasna Guru, uh, in Dallas. Omar had moved to Dallas, and he had set up, if I remember correctly, he had set up a seminar with Leo Gahe, and Leo wasn't able to make it, so he sent Billy instead. And that was my introduction to Bill. And then Bill was just uh, so good, very skilled, an excellent instructor, and made it fun. And continued to train under Bill. And then as he developed Bikini Tertia International, I just stayed with him.
Now, as far as one of my areas of interest, my academy here in the Houston area, I have Axiom Jiu-Jitsu and MMA in Missouri City, and we teach, STX kickboxing and BJJ. But one of the areas that I'm interested in, I've trained a little bit in, and I'd love to be able to train more in, is Wing Chun. How did you get involved in Wing Chun, and how did you hook up with Francis Fong, the great Francis Fong?
Yeah, that I actually saw Wing Chun when I was in the military. One of the things that after I got washed out of PJs and then moved into Little Rock, and then he started having us do um, tactical missions. I ran into several different guys that were doing different types of martial arts. And so we would play whenever we had downtime. And what we quickly found out, or at least I looked at it from the point of view of, we're playing around with these techniques. It's going to take me 3 months of hard training and development to be able to use these particular techniques the way that you're using them. Mm-hmm. So I threw that away. I said, I want to play with stuff that, can I use this tomorrow? Can I use this next week if I have to? And so that was my mindset going in and looking at playing with stuff. Was it had to be simple, and it had to be effectively usable in a very short period of time. So there's a lot of things that guys were doing, and then I trained with guys that would Goju-Ryu, all the rules, Ishin-Ryu, Taekwondo guys, just Akijitsu, Aikido, guys that had lots of different training and different stuff. So we just sort of played, and I threw things out that to me didn't work. So it didn't work for me at the time. But anyway, I was introduced to Wing Chun. There was a guy there that had done a little bit of Wing Chun. JKD was just really beginning to try to come up on the scene.
Around what year was this? The 80s or?
That was in no, it was the 70s, 72, 73.
Okay, yeah. JKD was just coming up on the scene for real.
Yeah. I was not a fanboy of Bruce Lee. At the time, I was more along the lines of because I've already was doing Shotokan and doing boxing, I was more involved with that end of it. And then to me, Bruce Lee at the time was just a movie star. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking at what he was doing until later on in life. But anyway, there was a guy there that did some Wing Chun stuff, did a little bit of JKD. He was a big Bruce Lee fanboy. And so, seeing the trapping and everything, the way that it was presented, I was like, yeah, that's a bunch of bull. That's BS. Um, and the way that he was doing stuff, yeah, I could see you possibly it working against someone who didn't know how to fight back. But anyway, I went to a seminar with a couple of guys that Francis Fong was doing. He was Wing Chun. Said, "Okay, I'll go with you guys," because we were training together at the time, and we went. And he was just so quick, so fast, so precise, and he had a way of making it usable that I had not seen prior. So then I started trying to find Wing Chun, and I trained with another guy for a while. That, yeah, his doing the drills and stuff, he was far better than I was doing the drills because he'd been doing the drills, but it was still a lot of BS to me. It just said fighting doesn't happen that way. Traps don't happen that way. Uh, and so there was a disconnect for me as to why are we drilling it this way to be used in a different manner. And his attitude was, no, this is how it's used. And so I was like, man, guys, I would never walk up to somebody with my hands down like this. A good way to get beat up in the face. I said, there's something missing. And when I started training with Sifu Fong, again, I went to a couple of seminars with him. And then one day I just said, look, I'm going to go to Atlanta and I'm going to try to hook up with him somehow or another. So I went to Atlanta, found his school, stood in the lobby while he was teaching a class. And he looks over and he looks at me and he goes, said, Louisiana, you from Louisiana? And I said, yeah. So he had remembered seeing me. Didn't know who I was or anything by any means, but he remembered seeing me and remember having talked to me, which that, of course, made me feel really good at the time, that someone would remember after maybe seeing you at a seminar twice. That was pretty. So anyway, he has a knack of being able to do those kinds of things with people. So we sat and talked for a little bit. And I trained with him, did a couple private sessions with him. He explained and showed me some much better ways of doing things, uh, and explained the fact that that the hands are down this way because this is designed for swords. This is designed for the knives. You fight with your hands up. You fight with your hands down when you have swords because the swords will be up. So just playing with him and learning how, and then his energy was phenomenal. And he tossed me around like a rag doll. Uh, I was like, I've never felt anything like that in my life. He was, he could move, he could touch you and move you with very, very little effort. He was just so good with it. And then he was so inviting and so giving that I just continued to train with him. And he accepted me as a student, even long term, because I was traveling back and forth. The the most frustrating things I had with him was that he would give me something. We would do it 2 or 3 times. He says, okay, you got it, move on to something else. And I was like, no, 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 let's keep working on this because I want to be able to perfect it. No, 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 you got it, Dan. Keep working. And so he would give me more stuff, and he would go faster and faster and faster. And of course, I couldn't keep up with him. And it was extremely frustrating on my end. And years later, as we grew to be a little bit better friends, as where before it was strictly a student teacher relationship. Uh, I asked him, why did you do that? He said, well, I knew that you weren't going to be here. I wasn't going to be able to teach you every day or 3 days a week or whatever. I was going to see you maybe every 6 months. So I
Yeah.
gave you as much stuff as that you could handle. And I knew that you were going to go home and practice and play with it. And so I threw a lot of stuff at you. I guess sort of the the whole thing is, if I throw enough mud on you, some of it will eventually stick. So I came home, and the only way that I could train it was to train other people. So I had to teach other people the part that I knew so that I could practice with them to go back and find out, well, you're doing this wrong. Let's fix this. doing that wrong. Let's fix that. Okay, you're doing okay with this. Keep working with that. And so it was a long distance love affair, uh, traveling back and forth and making mistakes and then fixing the mistakes.
Now you're still. I noticed on your Facebook, you'll do workshops, like 3-day workshops, Muay Thai, Wing Chun. Are you still doing any of the Wing Chun ones?
Yeah, I do. At least once a year, I do a 3-day camp.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Usually in January. I haven't said anything for 25 yet, but that's going to be coming in the next month. I'll be setting something up for that. Uh, yeah, I love Wing Chun. There's not a lot of Wing Chun here. Of course, you know, MMA is kind of taken over. MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does everything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Wing Chun, there's so much bad Wing Chun out there that it's hard to really find good Wing Chun. And when you do find it, you've got to really work it in order to be successful with it because it's so tactile. You have to have someone who's good in order to be able to work it and to really understand it.
You need a partner too, right? To really kind
Absolutely,
of,
yeah, because it's
yeah,
tactile. You have
yeah,
to.
like BJJ.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't understand what you're doing with it, it looks cool, but you'll never be able to fight with it. So
Here's the most important question: how long will it take me to get on the wooden dummy? That's the most important thing.
the wooden dummy is a fine tuner. And so if you don't know what you're doing to begin with, how can you fine tune something that you don't know what you're doing? Uh, for one, I think that I started on the wooden dummy way too soon. And I created a lot of bad habits and I created a lot of misunderstanding of what I was doing on the dummy because I was going through the motions, but not understanding what I was doing with it, what the tool was designed to teach. So I ended up spending with through Sifu Fong. You know, he was stop doing that. Stop. Do just these particular things. So he gave me drills to do on the dummy. And he said, just do these drills. Don't try to do the dummy form until you get this correct. Doing all the other stuff is going to be just a mess. And my timing was completely wrong on the dummy. So the dummy is a fine tuner. But if you haven't had any kind of tuning to begin with, trying to fine tune something that's not correct to begin with is not going to help you. So it really depends on the individual. As in everything, it's like saying, how quickly can I become a blue belt in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right.
You know, you can spend a lot of time doing it, but if you're not doing it correctly from the beginning, you're going to spend a lot of time repairing things that aren't being done correctly. Uh, Wing Chun really needs to have a good instructor who knows what's happening and what's going on and why you're doing different things. What I've learned from Sifu Fong is how to manipulate the body. And that's what you're really learning to do. It's also about your mind and knowing where your elbow is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and unfortunately, you see a lot of bad Wing Chun because people don't understand that aspect of it. They emulate the motions and the moves, but they don't understand the energies that's involved with it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll also want to delve into your experience or how you got connected with Erik Paulson and excuse me,
Sure.
and how you got connected with Erik Paulson and CSW.
Well, I actually got involved with Erik through one of my students. Uh, I've always pushed my students to go elsewhere to train with other people. I don't have all of the answers by any means. And someone can always maybe describe something, explain it differently, use different terminology. That may be a key to give you a deeper understanding of something that you already have.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always expressed to all of them, go train with whoever. And if it's good, you'll know it that it's good because you've got good training to begin with. you'll know that it's good. And if it's not any good, you'll know that it's not any good. But that's a decision that has to be based upon you, not upon me. So I've never told a student, don't go train with so and so. You only train with me or whatever. Go train. Uh, I don't believe in the term cross training. I think it's training. Training is training. uh, so anyway, he asked me about Erik, and I said I think that Erik Paulson is a phenomenal uh, instructor. He has a tremendous pedigree. He said, "Oh, you've trained with him before?" No, I haven't. Never trained with him. Don't know him. I just know about him. But I think that the people that I know that have trained with him, I respect their their knowledge on it. Go train with him. So he did, and he came back and said, "Man, you need to go train with this guy." I said, "Okay." And we probably 2 or 3 years that Mark trained with Erik, and whenever Mark would come back and would start, "What did you cover? What did you cover?" And then he started adding things into our game already. And I said, "Well, man, that's yeah, I need to go train with him." And so instead of going out to train with him, I invited him in, brought him in, did a seminar, weekend seminar with us. And he was just another, one of the things that I've always looked at is not just the skill level, but the individual themselves. Are they a good person?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are people out there that I will not train with, even though their skill level is good, because they're
Mm-hmm.
not good people.
Yep. Same
Uh,
here.
Mr. Paulson and his wife Tanya are just good people. And on the same note, before they came and trained with us, they contacted other people that we've been training with to find out if we were good people. And uh, Tanya called me back and said, "Yeah, we did some follow ups and stuff and checked on you, and everybody says that you're good. So yeah, we're more than willing to come in and train with you." So that was really nice. Uh, and it was a good time. Learned a lot from him, and he spent a lot of individual time with me, which I really appreciated. And so we just continued from there, built a relationship, and have continued. And I think that's the thing, is that uh, what's the relationship you have with your instructor?
Mm-hmm.
They can be older than me, they can be younger than me. It doesn't really matter. Is if I have a good relationship with them, I'm going to learn.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long ago was this you when you first invited Erik Paulson in?
Uh, I think that was in 2012.
2012. Okay.
2012, yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
were you certified any kind of BJJ at that time, or?
No, I was a 17-year white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I had trained with I started with Hey Diego through Francis Fong. Um, I met Hey because Sifu Fong had brought him in several times, and so started training with him. But of course, again, that's long distance stuff because
Well,
it
that's one
wasn't.
of the things in New Iberia. I mean, just growing up in Lake Charles in the 80s, like you said earlier, there was really just Shotokan and Taekwondo in Lake Charles. And Lake Charles is much bigger than, it's still a town to me, but still a small town, but it's much bigger than New Iberia, right?
Yep, yeah.
So um, just having, excuse me, having access seems like you'd have to do a lot of traveling.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I said earlier. I'd hate to even think about how much money I've spent traveling and paying for lessons and seminars and then private lesson time, uh, and then building a relationship with the instructor, because that was important to me, not just to be just a student, but if I really liked the person, I wanted to be uh, to develop a relationship with the
Mm-hmm.
instructor.
It's very
Uh,
important. Yeah.
yeah, and of course, by building a good relationship, they certainly gave me more time and put more energy into me. Brought me to a different level. Whereas otherwise, you're just a student and another person that's just there.
So how
Uh,
far were you traveling for jujitsu?
uh, I was traveling. I traveled as far as Maryland. uh, so I traveled to California.
Maryland. Wow.
to Oklahoma. I traveled to New York. I traveled to Maryland,
Was
Atlanta.
was this for all different BJJ instructors or?
Different, yeah, different of all, everything
Mhm.
from Muay Thai to BJJ to Wing Chun, all of it. Everything was having to travel uh, because it wasn't here. There wasn't anything, not on that level,
Yeah.
So, uh,
So you
and
were
then
under him for BJJ for a bit, and then
yeah, for a little bit, and then it was I couldn't grow with it because I couldn't spend the time. Uh, so I ended up under Pedro Sauer.
mhm.
Right? And of course, going with the Pedro Sauer, okay, got to start all over again.
Well, he's in Utah, isn't he?
Yeah, but he had people that were in Mississippi.
Mhm.
Mike Hopkins was with him at the time, and he had people that were in Atlanta and Alabama. So I was able to. It was closer. Now the closest was still 4 hours away from me, and in his program, he wanted us to come in and do a private lesson once a month, um, and then do a 4 hour session with him once a month. So, then it started doing that, but that got really expensive really quick.
Mhm.
And it became financially not a feasible thing that I could do. I wanted it because it was really good stuff. So anyway, I was training with Mike Hopkins uh, out of Mississippi. And then, like I said, it became unfeasible for us financially and time wise. So I kind of pulled back off of that and just was picking up whatever thing I could pick up wherever. Uh, there wasn't much on YouTube. There was no such thing as YouTube at the time. Again, all that was just brand new coming in. So um, I did a lot of it VHS, um, and then
Books.
School of Hard Knocks, your books, exactly. And then getting on the ground and rolling with people and trying to figure stuff out, and then finally going back to somebody else that was training and going, okay, what am I doing wrong? Why am I doing it? How did you pull this off? Uh,
Watching UFCs and trying to.
yeah, doing that kind of, yeah, absolutely. Uh, and then when I started training with Erik, it was funny. He said, "You're not a white belt," and I said, "Sure I am. That's all that I've got." So he started. Uh, for whatever reason, Erik took a liking to me. Um, Maybe it's because of I sent one of my students to Erik. I don't know if you know Trent Moe.
Mm-mm.
Trent runs the CSW headquarters.
Oh, Trent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Trent
so
came
he's yeah.
Trent came,
When I first
came up
walked in the
under
door,
me.
he was the first person I met,
Yeah,
and he asked me where I was from, and I said, well, I'm from Houston, but originally from Louisiana, and here I am in Orange County, and you see his eyes light up, and then he's like, I'm from Louisiana,
yeah,
So we talked about that a little bit, yeah. So he's
yeah,
really good. He's really good.
yeah.
So you sent
Trent.
him out there, and he kind of stayed, huh?
Well, yeah. Actually, I sent him, and he didn't want to go, and I said, "Yeah, you need to go." And so I paid his way to go. Um, Stayed there for a week, came back. About 3 months later, I said, "You need to go back." Sent him back, and when he came back after that one, he was like, "Man, I hate to say this to you, but I'd really like to move over there." I said, "Go, man, go." I've brought you as far as I could bring you,
Yeah.
wise. And he was a really strong up and coming fighter. He was ranked third in the Southeast in the MMA, and he had a really good record. I think at the time he had probably 10 or 12 fights with only a couple losses. So he was doing really quite well. Um, Said, yeah, if you really want to grow, then you need to grow on the grappling side, and I've brought you as far as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So go. Uh, and then he was sort of torn. So yeah, he ended up going and staying, and they love him. Um, and he's
Oh yeah.
become part of the CSW headquarters family and doing very, very well. So I think because of that, Erik probably took a little bit better liking to me. I don't know. And he opened up his doors to anything and everything that he had to me. And it's been a great relationship with them. Again, I'm really big on trying to make a relationship on the people I train with. And the Paulsons have become very, very good friends. We talk probably 3, 4, 5 times a month.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And in some form or fashion, he will contact me, or Tanya will contact me, or whatever. So yeah, it's pretty neat. So continue to grow from there.
Now you're talking about you've talked a lot about building relationships and how important relationship building is to you. I can tell that's a recurring theme here.
Yeah.
Um, I have a question for you. As you know, you're a former gym owner. It seems like you're still pretty affiliated pretty heavily with the gym that you sold.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen uh how do I phrase this? I have it's a small gym. We've been open for a couple years, but I've been in the martial arts for 20 plus 25 years. Have you seen people's attitude towards relationship change? I ask that because I'm wondering if relationships post COVID seem less important to people, and is that going to affect the business side of martial arts?
What I have seen post COVID is a closing of the openness that we had prior. Back in the 70s and into the 80s, if you didn't train with us, you don't train with us. You have to be part of our group.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody had their own little cliques, and everybody's us, our group was relatively small.
There was a lot of pride in that, right?
Yeah. Well, and then the MMA scene came along, and the the explosion of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the growth of it was all very open. And we went from you're not part of us, you don't train with us, to man, yeah, come on in and train. And I've always had, since I opened my school in '98, uh, if there was anybody that was in the area visiting and they just happened to be, we're going to be here for a week or whatever, and I'd be interested in training, come on in and train. Uh, just come train. I don't care. Just, yeah. So when I would visit other places, I would try to do the same thing, and got the door shut several times. But then all of a sudden that loosened up, and everybody was, yeah, come on in and train. Come on in and train almost anywhere you went. Uh, what I have seen post COVID now is we're going back to that. When we started traveling as nomads 3 years ago, and when I first made my first big trip that we decided we were going to go out, we were going to spend just 2 months, 3 months out on the road. The first 6 places that I contacted to go in and to train with said no.
Hmm.
And I was shocked. I was genuinely shocked that places were saying no. Of course, I posted something about it on Facebook at the time, and then we got invited to go all kinds of places and stuff. And one of the things that I'm beginning to see more and more of, and I actually had John Jack Latour, who is with Piketty Tertiary International, just posted something yesterday or the day before, the same sort of thing. He had a student that came in and did a 4-hour session with them, with a group session that he did, and they were doing group pictures and stuff afterwards, and did not want to be in the picture because they were concerned that their instructor would see that they were training with somebody else.
That's
And
old school.
yeah, and
I remember those days.
yep, and
When
well,
I started doing judo, I was doing judo and taekwondo at the same time, and I couldn't tell at different places. I couldn't tell either person that I
right,
was training somewhere else because I would be kicked out of the school.
yeah, well, you're beginning to see that again. Uh,
Crazy.
a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools that I've contacted said, no, if you're not part of us, then no, you don't get to train. You
Hmm.
know, I'm going to be in the area for a day. I just want to get some roll time. Other places, great. Yeah, come on in. So it's running, for me, it's running about 50% of the places that I ask, yeah, come on in. And then if they've heard of me or whatever, then they'll a lot of times say, man, would you teach something? Would you, you know, I'll be glad to share, but I'm not here to teach. I'm here to experience you. Uh,
You're not
but
missing a lot of relationships you could have built and made. And
absolutely, absolutely, and just contacts and
mhm.
yeah. So my attitude has always been, uh, I guess maybe I'm secure in what I have and what I know and what has been given to me, that I'm not worried about someone stealing it or being better than me or whatever. Heck, there's a lot of people better than me. You know, I I want to learn from anybody and everybody. That's and then the more contact, you know, how big is your us?
Yeah.
You know, the bigger your us is, the greater effect that you can have on with other people, or they can have effects with you, and it just expands and gets bigger. Uh, that's my premise. Is I just want to be able to coach people and mentor them. And if someone is better, you know, I've been asked many times, if someone came in and they were a lot better than you in Wing Chun, what would you do? I would say, hey man, show me what you're doing. How did you do that? You know, I'm not egotistical toward those ends. To me, it's all about sharing and learning. And if someone's better than me, and I don't care if they're older than me or whatever, younger than me. I mean, I've trained with a lot of people that are younger than I am. I'm 70 now. I'm trained with people that are considerably younger than me because they're better at certain things. Yeah, I'll learn from it. It's all good.
Now, other than that, what are some of the other ways you've seen the martial arts change since you've been in it?
But I think we saw. I think the MMA scene was great. One of the greatest things that could have happened for the martial arts industry, because it opened up everybody to. Uh, I think, and there still is today, and we're going back to that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of theoretical martial artists.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do your katas, you can do your air dancing. That's cool. That's, you know, the art side of it. That's great. Uh, but you're not learning how to fight by doing that. You're not learning self defense by doing that. Uh, so we can sit there and talk theory all day long, and there are lots of drills that we can do that are really good and fun drills. You know, think of in Filipino martial arts, hubad, lubad, just the hand passing drills and stuff. You can do those all day long. Those are great. Those are guys that are fantastic drillers. What are you doing with it? And can you do something with it in reality? And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are great drillers, and drillers make killers. If you start coming back and actually sparring with it,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to actually use it and apply it, what's applicable, when is it applicable? And you don't learn that by just doing the drills. You just learn the drill. Uh, so I think we saw a lot of people open up with the MMA scene, recognizing that, hey, I have to learn groundwork because ground happens. I have to learn how to punch and kick because all I know is wrestling, because I can still get beat up from that position. Um, and I think we saw a much better growth of the individual skill levels as we've gone back into, like, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'll talk about that with competition. They've they've gone away from learning the self-defense aspect to strictly doing competition things. And so you see people who are really good at pulling off arm bars and triangles
Mm-hmm.
until someone starts punching them in the face.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that goes out the window because they've never actually trained that. They've
Yeah.
only trained for the competition aspect of it. So uh, they're really good in competition, but they're theoretical in self-defense because they've never been punched in the face. I see a lot of people, and I think one of the major growths with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the fact that it's effective in a very short period of time if you get down there and grow with it. But if you're strictly effective in competition and you're not using it as a self-defense thing, then you're losing a lot of what the art really is.
Yeah.
And I think you have that in everything. In you know, boxing is good because you get punched in the face. Muay Thai is good because you get kicked, kneed, and elbowed as well as being punched in the face. Um, you have to do those kinds of things with it in order for it to actually be good and be effective. And I think we're seeing more and more of that. People play by the rules and they stay only within their lane of those rules. And the art itself actually becomes cheapened because of the specific rule sets. Judo is another one. You know, if you ask most people today about striking in judo, there's no striking.
Yeah.
No, there is striking in judo. It's just not allowed in competition. So those groups that teach only for competition don't teach any of the striking. And so the striking is lost to those people or never will be known to them to be able to utilize it. So they're only using a part of the art. And I think that's the big thing that I'm beginning to see more of. We saw an opening up of all of that. And then now, as people begin to go back into the closed mindedness, we're going to, history repeats itself. We're going to see it swing back in the other direction.
Hopefully. Now, excuse me, got a little cough here, just getting over
Sure.
a little cold. But do you have any funny anecdotes, any memories of training either with Francis Fong, Erik Paulson, anybody, anything you can share that was not too
Oh yeah.
embarrassing?
Oh yeah. No, most of the things that are funny that happened on my end. It was my uh, Arjun Chai. This I want to say the second time that I ever trained with him. Uh, he's going around walking around watching people and doing stuff, and he came over, and of course we're doing Muay Thai, and he came over and he says, "Sir, you Wing Chun guy?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I trained some Wing Chun." He said, "Oh no, you Wing Chun guy. I can see. Your Wing Chun pretty good." And I said, "Oh well, thank you. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself." And he said, "But sir, we're doing Muay Thai. Your Muay Thai sucks." So, because your weight distribution and your stance and everything is different.
Yeah.
Uh, things like that, just more of picking on people. With with Erik, Erik's big thing is he tries to get everybody to fart. So he'll put you on the ground, do knee on belly on you, and bounce on your stomach and sort of get you to fart. That's his big thing, man. All right, I got him to fart. So if you're with Erik, be aware of those kinds of things. Child put hot sauce on you. He's a rascal.
What, like he has hot sauce like a bottle and it will like
Yeah,
dump it in your eyes?
he actually used to carry a bottle with him. He doesn't do that too much anymore, but because I don't think he can eat the hot sauce as much as he used to. But yeah, he would actually go out to eat. If you left your food alone, he would put hot sauce on it for you, fire you up when you come back.
That's a good one.
Oh yeah, he's a lot of fun.
So it seems like you've had a long and happy martial arts journey.
I have, look, I knock on wood. I, I think one is I presented myself there as someone who wanted to learn. Um, and I think being genuine in that and um, growing and being a part of whatever it is that they do. And you just, how do you get better? You get better by being there, time with the masters and actually doing what they tell you to do. Having a good attitude, being respectful. I think that's the big thing. Um, Arjun Chai is really big on that. Sifu Fong is a traditional sort of guy as well. That was one of the things that's funny. Erik was when we first started doing stuff, he was like, "Oh man, you guys are old school." I said, "Yeah, we bow before we get on the mats. We uh, always show respect to each other between the rounds, and because it is, we're learning to punch, kick, knee, elbow, break, crank, and hurt other people. And so if we don't do it respectfully, You're just going to get other people angry or whatever. Larry Hartzell, Sifu Larry Hartzell, trained with him for a little bit, broke 2 bones in my right foot, demoing a toe hold because he was like a bull in the china shop. And he's, his attitude was like, "Oh man, I hate that when that happens." I said, "Yeah, Sifu Larry, I hate it too. Now I can't walk." you know, so being respectful is an important aspect of it. And I think that's where you build your relationships up from that kind of stuff, and you get better by being with good people. And I think that I've availed myself to good people. They have in turn availed themselves to me, and uh, I deeply appreciate that from them.
Now, you're, I won't say you're lucky, but you're definitely blessed to have trained with so many legends. I mean, just the names so far, including Larry Hartzell. Uh, it's an amazing journey you've had. If you had, I guess, in closing here, um, if you had to give advice to the next generation, what would your advice be, pulling from your history and your journey? What would you tell the next generation?
Um, as far as for training and gaining the knowledge, avail yourself to anybody and everybody who's better than you. You don't get better by being better than everybody else. You get better by being with people who are better than you. Avail yourself to people who are good people who care, um, and then always do your best. The None of it is easy. When you think about how many people are in the martial arts worldwide, there's a lot. But when you think about how many people are in the world, there's not a whole lot of people that are in the martial arts. And then you think about how many people have stayed in the martial arts long enough to earn the highest levels of whatever it is that they're in. So the almighty black belt. Um, those aren't equal across the boards because all martial arts, but it's a milestone for most people. Once people get to their black belt, how many people stay in? So even just the fact that you're in the martial arts, you're in a minority of people in the world. Um, every time that you succeed in advancing yourself or getting better, then you're in a top tier of people in the world. So we're it's a niche group. Um, some of us are strange, and of course, we're all strange in our own ways. But the thing is, if you want to get better, get with people who are better than you. Have a great attitude with your mind, your body, and your spirit. Know that physically you can do more and you can go further than you think you can. It's how strong is your mind and your willingness to do it. Um, and then be with people who are positive and want to have a good outcome for you versus people who are trying to be the better person. There are those that think they're better than everybody else, or they're um, unfortunately, there's a lot of cults inside of the martial arts industry. Stay away from those people. If anybody tells you you can't train with so and so, that's a tremendous red flag to me. I would not stay with anybody very long that would ever tell me that you don't have permission for me to train with somebody else. You don't train. Well, then I'm not training with you because I'm going to make that selection myself. So um, ask questions um, and seek the answers for what's best for you. And enjoy yourself. Have fun.
That's what a lot of people lose in the journey, I think. Have fun,
Yep.
smile, joke
Oh yeah.
around, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's something I'm teaching at a place called the Shed in Lafayette, and it's an MMA group. Been working with these guys for about 4 months now, and they're doing very very well since starting there. They're at 100% on their fights, which is kind of neat.
Wow. Yeah.
But um, that's one of the things that I when we first started training with those guys, and I do this with everybody that I teach, is that when you go to sparring, sparring is about learning. Sparring is not about winning. Fighting is about winning. We're not fighting right now. You're not going to get a trophy. You're not going to get paid. You're not going to get a ribbon. Nothing is going to be here other than us. We might take a picture afterwards. Yay. The big thing is have fun, enjoy yourself, try to do something different than what you normally do so that you actually learn and expand your knowledge and your skill sets versus always doing the things that you win on. And then when you get punched in the face, say thank you. And a lot of times the guys, people say thank you. Yeah, you just showed me that I did something wrong. Yeah. Thank you for showing me I did something wrong. Enjoy yourself and have fun. That's what it's all about.
Now, I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, Coach Danny. And if people want to train with you, how can they reach out? How can they find you?
Well, Coach Danny Terrell at gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, CoachDanny.ims, which is Integrated Martial Systems. I'm an integrator now. I don't, I can teach individual components, and I'm more than glad to do that. If you want to learn Muay Thai and I want to bring your Muay Thai to another level, I can certainly do that by all means. But I tend to integrate stuff. I tell people a lot of times, don't do what I do what I tell you to do, because what you're going to see from me is you're going to see Wing Chun inside of my Muay Thai. You're going to see Pikiti inside of my Muay Thai. You're going to see Muay Thai inside of my Wing Chun because it's there. Once it's inside of you, it's hard to take it out. But I can isolate it when I teach it. So it's very, very easy to do that. So I do privates, or I do groups, or I do camps. And I've traveled, so I'm more than glad to swing by your area. And I'm going to be leaving next week, as a matter of fact, going up to New York for a Pikiti Tersha camp in August. So we're going to spend a couple of weeks on the road, just traveling, playing, doing those kinds of things. And I appreciate you bringing me on. Thank you for the time.
I had a great time, and hopefully we'll be able to get together and train a little bit in the near future.
We can certainly hook up and cross paths by all means. And
absolutely, I'll be looking for that, definitely. And
too.
I definitely want to get some Wing Chun out of you.
I'd be thrilled to do that.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Coach Danny.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on my interview with Coach Danny Terrell. I want to thank him once again for being on the show. If you're interested in heading down to New Iberia and training a little Muay Thai, a little Wing Chun, a little Kali, a little Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if you're interested in training with him, his links are in the description. You can also follow my new graphic novel, The Gentleman's Guild. Yes, I'm making a graphic novel. It's called The Gentleman's Guild with artist E. by Canales. You can sign up for the mailing list now. The link for that is also in the description. And don't forget to watch Lion Killer, my debut feature film. That's right, I made a movie. It's called Lion Killer. It stars Regina Ting-Chen, who's currently on season 4 of Stranger Things. You can watch it at Amazon Prime, Tubi TV, Freevee. There's even a full Spanish dub on the Cine app. Once again, thanks for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, comment down below, and even post this episode on your social media platforms. This is Derrick Fury. Until next time, peace.